Hey there, health lovers. Welcome to The Scoop, where we serve you straight nutrition talk, one scoop at a time. I'm Rachel. I'm a dietitian. I'm a wife. I'm a mom of two busy boys, and I am a big fan of making small, healthy changes that can lead to big results. So grab your coffee, your water bottle, or even your afternoon snack and settle in. We're about to dive into today's scoop. And trust me, these simple tips are going to make healthy living feel a whole lot easier. Let's get started. Any and all opinions and views shared by hosts and guests on this podcast are the speaker's own and do not represent the views of Live It Up or its affiliates or parent company. Hey guys, welcome back to The Scoop, serving you straight nutrition talk, one scoop at a time. I'm Rachel. I'm a dietitian and nutrition expert. And today, I'll be talking about microplastics. Are we eating too many? Is there anything we can do to help reduce our intake? Let's talk about it. First, exactly what are microplastics? I feel like most people know, but I'm all about starting from the foundation and building information up from there. So let's dig in to the basics. So microplastics are tiny particles of plastic that are less than 5 millimeters in length, which is about actually the size of a pencil eraser. Then there are nanoplastics that are usually defined as less than 1 micrometer. These little pieces of plastic can come from all different sources. Some are simply parts of larger plastic items that have degraded. Some are microbeads, which are tiny balls of plastic that are added to products such as toothpaste, exfoliants, cleansers, beauty products. The good news is that in 2015, the United States banned microplastic, those little bead particles, from use in cosmetics, toothpastes, and personal care products. So at least we are now not brushing our teeth with plastic. How do these plastics get into our environment? There are two primary ways. And the first is that we use the beauty product and it gets washed down the drain. It makes its way through our water system and then gets flushed into the ocean or recycled. Do they actually recycle stuff? Maybe a small percentage. Okay. Other times, plastic waste that unintentionally or intentionally gets into the ocean and soil, and it breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces. So microplastics, they're found all over our environment, all over the world, from the ocean to groundwater, and even entire rocks have been found that are made entirely of plastic on remote, isolated islands. And because of how pervasive these particles are, researchers have now found that microplastics are in our bodies, in our organs, in our blood, in breast milk, in rain, in drinking water, and in almost all of our food sources. So today I'm going to dig in a little deeper to where plastics have been found in our foods, because as a dietitian, this truly astounds me. Microplastics have been found in fish and shellfish who may accidentally ingest plastic from the ocean. Tea, because apparently some tea bags are made from plastic. Fruits and vegetables, beans and grains. These plants take up microplastics from their leaves and from their roots because it's found in groundwater and in rain. Beer, which is made from crops of wheat and made with water, both of which contain plastic. Sea salt, which is made by evaporating seawater, which contains plastic. Honey, because bees pick up microplastics from the air and from the foods that they eat, which is then transferred to the honey they make. And cow's milk, even fresh, hand-drawn cow's milk. So it's not just from the container through a plastic, though the plastic container adds more. And it's also found in animal meats, things like steak and pork, and even vegetarian meat alternatives. So don't think you're going vegan and avoiding the plastics, because you're not. Aside from the sources in our kitchen and the grocery store, we are exposed to microplastics through plastics in clothing and furniture and carpet and air pollution and so many other places. With all of these sources, it's really no wonder that it's estimated that we are exposed to between tens of thousands to millions of microplastics per year. What does this mean? It's really hard to say. Currently, there's just not a lot known about how these particles affect us because we're in the very baby stages of this field of research. Most studies we have have been done on animals and in vitro, which means they're done in little test tubes. So it's really hard to extrapolate what that actually means for us as humans. But considering that plastics have basically become inseparable from human life, there is likely to be some sort of effects. We just don't know for certain what they are yet, but I'm sure the studies will come. With that said, there have been studies that look at some of the chemicals that have been found in plastics, such as BPA, phthalates, and these are associated with a variety of potentially negative health outcomes. It's very important that I talk about what this means for your diet. I am a dietitian after all. And yes, microplastics are being found in whole foods such as fruits and vegetables and proteins and grains. But these foods are still really important for our health. They are the basis of life. So we absolutely need to be eating them to gain the vitamins and the minerals and the antioxidants and protein and complex carbohydrates and fats that are necessary for our body to function. Eating these foods is so much more important than avoiding them over concerns about microplastic contamination. Even though I might have just freaked you out a little bit, adding in more produce and getting a variety of whole foods is absolutely essential to our health and longevity. With that said, there are certain foods that have more plastic than others, and these are the foods you might consider minimizing. So let's talk about protein first. A recent study looked at all the sources of protein, even vegetarian ones, and found that the highest in microplastics are breaded shrimp, followed by plant-based nuggets. Next are chicken nuggets and fish sticks, and then regular shrimp. The least contaminated when it comes to proteins are chicken breast, pork loins, and tofu. So there are definitely choices, and you can kind of see that the more processed something is, the more microplastic it likely contains. All right, let's talk about fruits and vegetables now. Many more studies need to be done because the few that have been done on produce only look at a small handful of foods, and others only report that they contain microplastics rather than like ranking them highest to lowest. They don't look at the amount. They just look at, yeah, I found it in lettuce. So with that said, what we do know so far is that fruits probably have more microplastic than vegetables. This might be because of the water content, but they didn't really extrapolate on that. So it could be because of other factors. And apparently the most contaminated are apples and carrots, which is awesome because I eat those a lot. And the least are lettuces. Like, this isn't something that I have to share, but like what they found is that lettuces had the biggest particles of plastic, but the least total amount. So that's a fun tidbit. Also, I want you to think about this. Fruits and vegetables will definitely have less microplastics than, for example, fruits that come canned in plastic containers, like those little baby mandarin oranges that are just delicious. Canned vegetables that have a plastic lining, they'll have a little bit more plastic. So if you're able to stick with fresh, that would be best most often. Okay, let's talk about grains. Now, we don't know much here other than they have been found in all types of grains, like plastics have been found in all types of grains. Interestingly, pre-cooked rice, like the parboiled rice that you might buy or instant rice, that actually has 3 to 4 times more plastic than uncooked rice. And also, rinsing your rice thoroughly before cooking it reduces plastics by 20 to 40%. So rinse your rice. Rinsing your rice can also reduce the amount of arsenic. Also, the arsenic isn't added to rice. That's just naturally there. Arsenic is naturally in our food systems. It's naturally found in things like sweet potatoes, like things that are grown close to the ground, like in the ground, are going to have more arsenic. So just be aware, like food companies aren't just adding arsenic to your food. Sometimes it's naturally there, coming from the air and the ground. All right, let's get back to microplastics. There are no studies yet showing whether rice has more or less plastic than other grains, but it's probably safe to say that rinsing your grains before you cook them is a good idea. Now, microplastics have also been found in beans. While they are in dry beans because the plants take up microplastics from the soil and the water and the air, there are probably a bit more microplastics found in canned products that have a BPA lining. So choosing dry might help reduce your intake of microplastics slightly. Let's break it down. What can we do in our everyday life, particularly as it relates to nutrition and eating, because that's what I'm here for, to help reduce our exposure to microplastics? Here are just a few tips to get you on your way. 1, switch from using plastic cutting boards to wood, glass, marble, or some other material. Also, do you have one of those plastic slap choppers? Like you put like the garlic in there and you like chop it. I was using one the other day and I was like, probably chopping a lot of plastic into my garlic. So I don't use that anymore. You might consider doing the same. The other thing that you want to think about is what utensils you're using. If you have plastic cooking utensils, the big one right now are those black utensils in the news. You might want to switch to metal or wood. Try using metal or glass cups and bottles, like water bottles, rather than plastic. One that I know a lot of parents might think about is what kind of like baby bottle to use, what kind of sippy cup. You might want to see what kind of options are out there because most of the stuff made for kids is plastic. If you have the means and the ability, you can also consider installing filtration systems. Some filtration systems for water actually take out microplastics. Reverse osmosis definitely does. Ceramic water filters often do. Even like there's a Brita one, Brita Elite. That one takes out most microplastics, but not the regular Brita one. That one hasn't been shown to take out as much. The other thing you might consider is using rock salt more often than sea salt. Since most brands of sea salt tend to have more microplastic contamination. You want to avoid heating up food in plastic containers or even putting hot foods into plastic containers. You can also consider purchasing reusable metal lunch containers for your kids and for yourself rather than using like plastic Ziploc bags or plastic bento boxes. Try to reduce highly processed foods. This one I know is hard. And I'll talk about processed foods in the future, but the studies are showing that the more processed a food, it likely contains more microplastics. Now, the bottom line is that we cannot get rid of all microplastics from our diet, but there are things we can do to help reduce how much we get each day. After that fun episode, let's set some goals. So, think about your entire eating pattern, from the types of foods you purchase to how you prepare them, to how you cook and how you store the leftovers. Where in your process could you make some simple swaps to help reduce your and your family's exposure to microplastics? Make a list of the things you'd like to change, but remember, you don't have to make all the changes all at once. What's easiest for you to do in this moment? What will give you the most bang for your buck? Write it down. Let me know. What will you do this week? What will you do next week? Think about this as taking control of what is within your reach, but letting go of the things that you cannot change. We can't get rid of all the microplastics, but we can make a positive impact.